Good evening, Summa scholars. Welcome to the Daily Summa. I'm here. It's late. My chair's all the way down, so it's going to be weird. Hold on a second. That's a little better. Welcome to the Daily Summa. Doing a little late tonight. Just finished my D&D game. Craig's still kind of on the up and up, so let him rest a little more today. So we're just going to get ripping and rolling. Nothing too special is going on. Things are generally good, with a tinge of bad. So prayers for Craig is appreciated. If you remember, it's always good. Otherwise, let's get ripping and rolling here. We're starting off here at question 19, Article 9, finishing up Article 9, going into Article 10. And we'll just get ripping and rolling here, I think. We're going to be rolling right into the applied objection 2 here. Evil does not operate towards the perfection and beauty of the universe, except accidentally, as said above. Just going back to that thing of evil being good. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. So when we... something like this, maybe. Might be better. If I go down to the slide, that's better. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, I lost my thought. We're just going to keep rolling. Therefore, Dionysius, in saying that evil would conduce to the perfection of the universe, draws a conclusion by reduction to an absurdity. Reply to objection 3, Shimon. The statement that evil exists and that evil exists not are opposed as contradictories. Yet the statements that anyone wills evil to exist and that he wills it not to be are not so opposed, since either is affirmative. God, therefore, neither wills evil to be done, nor wills it not to be, but wills to permit evil to be done, and this is a good. Going back to free will, which we're going to get into in just a second. Article 10, whether God has free will. It's a very interesting question. And we're going to learn the answer to this question through our friend Larry, who's always wrong. So we can always, one of us is always wrong, and one of us is always wrong. Larry's always wrong. That's the answer. Objection 1, Larry. It seems that God has not free will, for Jerome says in a homily on the prodigal son, God alone is he who is not liable to sin, nor can be liable. All others, as having free will, can be inclined to either side. So God has free will. So we learned just now. Further, free will is the faculty of reason and will by which good and evil are chosen. But God does not will evil, as has been said in Article 9. Therefore, there is not free will in God. It's a good dig on that. And on the contrary, said Contra, Ambrose says, the Holy Spirit divideth unto each one as he will, namely, according to the free choice of the will, not in obedience to a necessity. I answer that we have free will with respect to what we will not of a necessity, nor natural instincts. For our will to be happy does not appertain to free will, but to natural instinct. Hence, other animals that are moved to act by natural instincts are not said to be moved by free will, since then God necessarily wills his own goodness, but other things not necessarily, as shown above in Article 3. He has free will with respect to what he does, not necessarily will. He has free will with respect to what he does not necessarily will. Right, so everything he doesn't will, he freely chooses not to will. This is the idea, I suppose. Reply to objection 1. Jerome says to deny free will to God, not simply, but only as regards to the inclination to sin, which makes sense. Cherry picking Larry. Reply to objection 2. Since the evil of sin consists in turning away from the divine goodness by which God wills all things, as shown above, it is manifestly impossible for him to will the evil of sin. Yet he cannot make choice of one of two opposites, inasmuch as he can will, a thing to be or not to be. In the same way, we ourselves without sin can will to sit down and not will to sit down. I think that was the perhaps shortest article ever that we've had. Which is pretty good. We're about to end another one and go through most of Article 11 right here too, which makes sense. It's a question that it's like, does God have free will? If you think about it too much, it gets a little complicated and confusing. But simple as yeah, he does. And these are simple. Seems to me simple reasons to rebut it. Article 11, whether the will of expression is to be distinguished in God. It seems that the will of expression is not to be distinguished in God, for as the will of God is the cause of things, so is his wisdom. But no expressions are assigned to the divine wisdom, therefore no expressions ought to be assigned to the divine will. Objection 2, Ralph. Further, every expression that is not in agreement with the mind of him who expresses himself is false. If, therefore, the expressions are assigned to the divine will are not in agreement with that will, they are false. But if they do agree, they are superfluous. No expressions, therefore, must be assigned to the divine will. I don't know what will of expression is. I don't know. Maybe we can just figure this out live, huh? What's will? What is will of expression? Let's see what it says. Let's see what's Bing gonna break off for me here. Let's just see what we got. Will within philosophy is a faculty of the mind. Will is important as one of the parts of the mind, along with reason and understanding, is considered central. What is will? No, what's the will of expression? Expression of will. Let's go a little deeper. We have time. We're going through this pretty quick. We can just oh, it's just like a bunch of. Okay, I tried. We're not getting that right now, so we're just gonna keep rolling through this. Beaver Gallon keeps going. Sometimes we don't know where we're going. On the contrary, the will of God is one, since it is the very essence of God. Yet sometimes it is spoken of as many, as in the words of Psalm 110, verse 2. Great are the works of the Lord, sought out according to all his wills. Therefore, sometimes the sign must be taken for the will. I answer that some things are said of God in their strict sense, others by metaphor. So appears from what has been said before. In question 13, article 3. When certain human passions are predicated of the Godhead metaphorically, this is done because of a likeness in the effect. Hence, a thing that is in us a sign of some passion is signified metaphorically in God under the sign of that same passion. So we express things through our passions that God only expresses metaphorically through those same passions. Okay. I'm kind of approaching understanding that, but if somebody else gets that better than me, please say so in the comments, especially. Thus, with us, it is usual for an angry man to punish, so that punishment becomes an expression of anger. Therefore, punishment itself is signified by the word anger when anger is attributed to God. In the same way, what is usually with us an expression of will is sometimes metaphorically called will in God, just as when anyone lays down a precept, it is a sign that he wishes that precept obeyed. Hence, the divine precept is sometimes called by metaphor the will of God, as in the words, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, from Matthew. There is, however, this difference between will and anger, that anger is never attributed to God properly, since it is in its primary meaning and includes passion, whereas will is attributed to him properly. Okay, so in his anger, it's a metaphorical anger, not like an anger we experience, but, well, not exactly the anger we experience, but like an anger we experience, I suppose is the thing. Therefore, in God, there are distinguished will in its proper sense, and will as attributed to him by metaphor. Will in its proper sense is called the will of good pleasure, and will, metaphorically taken, is the will of expression, inasmuch as the sign of itself of will is called will. Reply to objection 1. Knowledge is not the cause of a thing being done unless through the will. For we do not put into act what we know unless we will to do so. Accordingly, expression is not attributed to knowledge, but to will. And that's the end of our page. I believe tomorrow will be the end. And we don't have a short page. We have a full page, basically, with the 5 or 6 lines taken out. And then we move on to question 20, which is short and should finish up on Friday, if I remember right. You can do the math right now. So this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so Friday, we will finish question 20 and have our decade party, which is one of those things we do, copying our, as Craig would say, our brother Yaakov in their Daf Yomi studies, where they have a party at the end of each Masechta, which is like a certain segment of the teaching of the Gemara. We copy that straight up, steal it outright, and have little decade parties at the end of each 10 questions, kind of referencing back to the Rosary. So we should have a little good time on Friday, and then we'll get into the next spot of the decades for one day before we get into the octave of Pentecost, in which, if you remember the octave of Easter, we went a full 8 days not doing any Summa, which is exactly what we'll do for Pentecost, because we love the Holy Spirit. We want to celebrate that time. And then after that, our next octave is Christmas. So It'll be a long, long stretch of Summa. So we'll try to make sure to enjoy that octave while we have it. Anyway, this has been the Daily Summa. Remember, this is all straw, and make sure to stay in prayer. And I offer up the study retroactively for my friend Craig and all the difficulties he's going through. And if you all would pray for him, that'd be very much appreciated. Anyway, good night. See you in the morning.